Emily Utter, welcome to Get Gutsy.
Yay. Hi. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so where am I talking to you from? Where are you?
So I'm at home right now. I'm in Encinitas, but I'm headed to Bali in a few days. Yay.
Yes. Yay. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for you. You're a big traveler. Like this is your thing, and this has been a big part of your brand and your message.
It has been, but it wasn't always. And I actually learned a lot about not having it in my messaging. So now it really is.
Okay, let's dive in there.
Okay.
So
Yeah. So should I just share a little bit
go.
about
Yeah,
that? Okay.
go.
So it's kind of funny. I know that you know this about me, but one of the things I'm really obsessed with is sometimes I think about it as personality-based marketing, or I'm really into right now self-expression. Personal power is definitely my current obsession. But what I found in the very beginning when I first started traveling and running my coaching business from anywhere is that some of my clients didn't react very positively to it, especially when I was in different time zones that were way, way off. And it bothered some people. And I even had clients say, where are you? You just left, which is funny because the business, maybe the first year of my business, I did do in-person sessions, but the business has really always been virtual. And what I learned from that was just how important it is for us to really show who we are to the world, particularly in our marketing. Because now that I do that, it's no shock. My clients are excited. In fact, I'm hanging out with some clients in Bali. My first couple of nights, I'll be having dinner with clients. I'm even staying with a client my first 3 nights when I get there. So it's a completely different world now. But I was basically pretending and being who I thought I was supposed to be to get clients. And I realized that when I did that, I could get clients, but then the vibe was off. There wasn't a complete match there. So the travel,
they weren't the right clients.
Right, exactly. So the travel thing and me actually building that into my marketing has been really powerful because my clients want to travel too. Not all of them, of course, but they want to travel too. Many of them I actually met at places like Burning Man or Bali or other adventures I've gone on in the world. It's where I get a lot of my clients, actually.
That's so awesome. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's just a great point that you make. And a lot of them, we're going to get to it in our conversation, but we kind of were brought up, we're taught a certain thing by the powers that be. And this is related to what you're super fired up about, which is self-expression. And so we kind of keep these things under wraps. Like to your point, when I first started homeschooling one of my kids, which was not in the original plan, I was like, they're all at school, like, woohoo, finally they're all out, like they're out of the house. I got my time back. And then my first son was like, oh yeah, P.S. That's not working for me anymore. I want to be homeschooled. And I was shocked. And then I really tried to hide it because I thought that my clients would think that I wasn't taking the work seriously anymore. Like, how can she still have a business and be doing this and be homeschooling? Like, that's impossible. No. And so I kind of was very on the DL about it. Plus I was working through my own stuff, my own pain and shame and anger and like, what is going on here? Then once I really just claimed it and realized this is a beautiful thing and we're not going back to the way that it was, I've got to just embrace and surrender. I had clients want to work with me because I freaking homeschool. And so it was that willingness. And so for our listeners to really say, like, what is the thing that you're pretending? What is the thing that you think you're supposed to be presenting in the world? But who are you really?
Yeah, it's a huge question to ask. Oh man, the responsible thing. That's the beauty of running online businesses. It's not supposed to look like the 9 to 5. I mean, people can choose that if they want to. That's perfectly fine. But it's not why I started the business. If I started the business to play by those rules, I would have just kept the job. You know what I'm saying?
Totally, totally. So let's go back. Let's do a little time machine and go back in time. What were you doing before this? Because I know you haven't been doing this for your entire career.
Yeah. Well, my first business was an environmental consulting business. So way back in the day, Emily's first job out of college was actually a year in AmeriCorps. I don't know if you know AmeriCorps.
Yeah.
So it's like domestic Peace Corps for anyone who's checking this interview out and doesn't know what it is. But it's a year of they call it volunteerism, but you do get paid
Mhm.
very little. I was paid $1,100 a month living in San Francisco, which is insane. So of course, more than half of that went to rent. And then, I lived off of like food stamps. They
Wow.
literally gave us food stamps. Yeah.
Wow. They really
Yeah.
did. Okay.
Yeah, they really did.
Shit.
So that was doing environmental work. It was actually environmental education with kids. So I would go to classrooms and teach the kids about recycling, composting. So I know way more about plastic, recycling, composting than the average person would ever care to know. I know how bad it smells in the facilities. I've been there many, many times. But something really piqued my interest when I was doing the environmental work, which was I had found an article about Ireland banning plastic bags or starting to charge for plastic bags. I can't remember now, which is horrible. I'm like horrified I forgot. But and they started charging for bags. That's what it was. And so I went to my boss and I said, can I do this? So I ended up becoming a big activist for banning plastic bags. So we were successful in San Francisco, and then I worked on campaigns all across the state of California, across the US. I started consulting cities around the world on how to ban plastic bags and styrofoam. So I like to think I was a sexy lobbyist going around Sacramento and different cities, talking to lawmakers, which is funny because I realize now, Jenny, that's actually so connected, I think, to why I'm so good in business, because it's about the power of persuasion. And getting people to understand why they should take a specific action. So it's a great background for sales. It took me a long time to put this together. Like, why am I so good at sales? Which I was horrible at first. But then when I realized, okay, I could take all this activist stuff and bring it into the business, because it was really all about how do you rally people around an idea, a movement, an outcome. So, I did the environmental work, and I had clients that were government. I had clients that were nonprofit. I also had, regular companies, profit companies who I worked with. I worked with a reusable bag company. So I did that for about 7 years. Part of my story that's kind of funny, but I think a lot of your people will relate. I wanted to go to Argentina. And at the time, and I look back at myself and I'm like, Emily, seriously, I didn't know how to run my business virtually, because I would go and, like I said, I would be going to these facilities and setting up actual recycle bins in commercial buildings and things. And I wanted to go to Argentina. So basically what I did was I fired all my clients. I went off to Argentina and came back to a job, which I got fired from 9 months later, and then came back to the entrepreneurial journey where I went back to the environmental consulting actually at first. And then everyone was bugging me. You probably had this too. The emails, the texts, can I take you to dinner? Can I have coffee with you? How are you doing this consulting business? And I remember sitting in my kitchen and having this thought of, God, there's got to be a way to get paid for this. But I'd never heard of coaching. I had no idea what coaching was, but I basically put the call out to the universe and I said, I need to find a teacher. I need to find my teacher. And then I got invited to one of those 3-day coaching events, and I bought the program, not without a lot of drama, but I bought the program and, launched the coaching business. The drama being I was terrified. Was that what
I was like, what? Yeah. I was like, what was the drama? What was there? Was a lot of drama.
Well, first of all,
dive in there.
Well, I was so green. So you're going to laugh.
You weren't used to that kind of an environment. Like the first time you go to one of those events, I remember my first event was Allie Brown's, which was where you and I just hung out a couple weeks ago. And I was like,
no way.
It was like 1,000 people at the Venetian in Las Vegas. You're like,
oh my gosh.
Oh my God. Like it was just like energy out the yin yang, chicks everywhere, stories, and then the offer, and you're like, So what was your first event?
Well, so it was Sage Levine, who I ended up hiring, who I love, who's a good friend of mine now. But man, I did not know there was going to be an offer, and I was extremely triggered. And in fact, poor Sage, we die laughing about this now because we're tight, and she's even rented my house when I travel and things. She said, if there's anyone who's not sure, you can come sit with me at lunch. So you better bet I sat right next to her. And I ripped her a new one. I was like, you told us to take it slow, and now you're asking us for 10 grand or whatever. And I just lost it. I mean, one of the conversations we have, and I've said to Sage many times, yo girl, we got to do a Facebook Live on this or an interview on this or something. But what it took inside of her to not be triggered by me and to actually believe in me and close me as a client is so powerful. And I look back on that story often because firstly, I think personal development is, and I know you agree, completely non-negotiable for the type of work that we do. And I know Sage must have had a really strong background to not be triggered when someone in her audience is literally ripping her a new one at her own event. Like, I'm like horrified at the Emily Utter in 2014 or whenever that happened. But that's really the true story. And, you know, so I signed up for the program and then I backed out, and then she got on the phone with me a couple of times and she just kept with me. And a lot of people could judge that process and say, you know, well, she must not have been ready. Like, why did Sage follow up with me? You know, whatever. There can be so much judgment around the sales process. But I think there were a couple things that she asked me, but there was one question she asked me in particular that stood out, which was something along the lines of, what will it be like for you if nothing has changed a year from now? And I was like, oh, hell no. Like, that is literally not a possibility in my worldview. And, you know, I'd love to say I said yes in that moment, but I didn't. I still made her talk to me the next day again. But that's really, really what it takes sometimes, you know? And I just kept leaning in with her. Like, there's a difference between following up with someone who already said, no, I'm legit not interested. But I was leaning towards it. I was just so scared. But it's
and it wasn't like your background. You know, you came, like you said, you were in the first gig, you were $1,100 a month and you were on food stamps, you know. And
that was before, but yeah, so I was actually doing okay.
You grew, but this whole, maybe it was just that world. And sometimes it's scary to move into that next thing. It's we're afraid of our own power. We're afraid of like, well, God, what will happen if I do this? Am I going to be leading events like Sage? Like, that's a lot of responsibility. Am I gonna move? Am I gonna, like, what's going to happen with my relationships? And what I sense in that dynamic, she saw something in you, you know? I feel like a lot of our job as coaches and leaders of our mission and, you know, really the torchbearer for the message that we're here to share. I say this to my people all the time. I'm a talent spotter. It is my job to spot talent. So if I have talent, I'm going to come after you. Like, I want you on my team, right? Yes. I want you on my team. You got to make that call. But, you know, I'll work with you on that. And yeah, I'm like, thank goodness she was willing to not get triggered, not be like, you know what, you're freaking not ready. You just yelled at me at my own event. Like, you know, screw you. Yeah. She was really able. And so she was that coach for you. She was the one who was meant to bring you through that next chapter, really bring you over the threshold.
Totally. And you know what? The truth is, I knew I was going to do the program. I was just terrified. And the way that I knew was that when she was bringing up her success stories on stage, I knew I was going to be on the stage. I knew it. knew it. And of course I was, you know, a year later when she did the event again, and I had then almost graduated the program. And I remember I had been at an event in Portland and I had to take like a 6 a.m. flight on no sleep. I don't even think I was able to shower, but like I basically went straight from the airport to a taxi to, you know, the event, which wasn't even anywhere near the airport, onto the stage. Like it was like that kind of thing. And I felt so pumped up. I was like, yes, like this is the moment that I knew was going to happen.
So what was the fear? Do you remember in that moment?
Oh yeah, it was money.
Just the money. It was just 10
Yeah,
grand.
it was like,
oh my God.
Yeah, I'm going to throw away this money. And I remember talking to one of my girlfriends, Orly, who was so brilliant. She's like, Emily, and she helped me see how I was going to get the ROI. And then it was like, oh, duh. And then another woman, I called a psychic, and she was like, Emily, the retreats alone, the personal growth you're going to get just from the retreats alone are going to be worth 10K. And so it just all started to make sense to me, like, oh yeah. And then I also, you know, once in a while we have to remember who we are, right? And I was like, I'm Emily effing Utter, and you better bet your butt that I am I am going to milk every freaking cent. So I was the annoying girl in the program, raising my hand, like first on every call, asking questions in the Facebook group. I went to every live event, and trust me, there were a lot of tears and like, oh my God, so much, so much. But I just kept showing up. And then, I think I did like 80K that year, which was a big deal for me.
Yeah,
So
it is.
That was cool.
Yeah. And so you made the money back. It was like, okay, you made the money back. And again, a business is not free to run. So when we say our revenue, that's like not
sure, of course.
Right. But when you realize, okay, I can take this knowledge, I can take this energy, I can take this community and make something. I'm gonna just put some ideas out there. I'm gonna say I got this program. I'm gonna let people know I got one-on-one work, and you start vibrating at this different energy level. I mean, this is a really powerful conversation to have, because I see my sons are like cruising around right by my window. I'm like, okay. Because for women who are in this space, because I have a lot of people who are maybe newer, they haven't been to some of those coaching events. They're not new as a business person because they've been in corporate, they've done this, they've done that. But that type of environment, female entrepreneurs, very much with this coaching lens, is like a whole universe. Okay. And so the first time you go to one of those things, you almost feel like an alien, but you feel like you're at home because these are your people. This is how I felt anyway. I was like, I didn't even know this was a thing. Oh, it's a thing. I like this thing. But then typically, some sort of invitation for the next step is offered. And it's often not, quote, cheap. But then if you're willing to do the work and raise your hand and show up for the calls and really take advantage of it, you will get a huge return on that. But the fear is so normal. I had that same thing. I signed up for Allie's program. I tried to like back out. I was so free because I got home and I'm like, what'd I just do?
Exactly. Like, why did I do that?
Yeah. When you're in the room, it makes perfect sense. And then even though you're afraid, then you get home, you're like, wait, hold on. Now I got to show up for this stuff and meet some people I don't know and really, become more vulnerable and actually do the work to get the return. Oh, now I got to put myself out there with this. Okay.
Yeah. I thought I just had to pay for the program, and that would bring me to six figures. So it was a little bit of a rude awakening when I realized I had to go implement stuff. I was like, oh, okay.
And I think that's the piece. That's the piece maybe that some people get angry about the coaching field. They're like, I bought the blah, blah, and then nothing happened. Well, did you implement? Like, did you do it? Did you do it? So let's talk about like really where you launched off from there. So this was like your way in, and then you've been, I see you as just a program creatrix and launcher and just a woman who freaking puts it out there. You're a prolific copywriter. You said, that former life just allows you to be super clear about your position. And like you said, rally someone around the movement or an outcome. So you do this on the regular, but was it challenging when you first got started to find that voice and be consistent with putting it out there?
Well, in the beginning, I wasn't even using social media, and I didn't even have a list for the first year. So really what I was doing was public speaking and networking, which are two of my favorite things anyway. I got my very first client at a networking event that was for environmental people, because I was still bridging. I actually kept my consulting company going for the first year and a half of the coaching business to kind of float me financially. Which was a really smart choice that I recommend to anyone, to have something to float you along in the beginning. But I think, to be honest, I think I was so naive that I think that the insecurity, in some ways it was far more than, but in some ways I was so naive that I didn't even know that I should be a little bit worried about what I was putting out there, if that makes sense. So like, while in one way I would just like cry, like, oh my God, I have no idea what I'm doing. Now I know that I'm being held to a standard of integrity. And so, or I know that people could be asking about the results my clients get or things like that. And in the beginning, I don't know. I don't know what I was doing. I mean, I did to a point, right? Because it obviously worked, but it's funny how it's changed, because now that I've gotten so much more active publicly, it does feel different in that I know people are paying attention, and I think I feel a stronger responsibility to what that means.
Yeah. So let's dive into that now, because I know you and I are both. I'm going to go open my door and let my dog in. Okay. I can still hear you.
Yeah.
And this is all real life. You know,
Okay.
I always say on my podcast, come back in. She's my assistant, you know, she's my,
good.
Yeah, she will. She just scratches like, all right, I'm coming in. You know, she sits on that couch. I think she can't even hear what we're saying, but I think she can energetically feel it.
Yeah.
And she's a girl too. So,
Aw.
all right. So, yeah, this responsibility to what you're talking about, and really talking about like the results, and you're solid. You're not this fly by night coach who's going to be out, you know, next week because you decided this was too hard and you're going to go into some totally different industry. Why is this so important to you now?
Well, partly it is because there's a lot of junk out there. And so I really see myself as a truth teller, as someone who can help a newbie understand what's really going on. I think there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of bad advice. So it's a bit of a mama bear vibe where I'm like, okay, you know, here's really what the deal is, y'all. So that's part of it. But then also realizing, and I know you and I really connect on this, is that there's a much broader picture to the work that we do. And even though my platform is very small, still the fact that a few thousand people here and there are paying attention to what I have to say, I want there to be meaning behind it. I do love I make fun of myself, and I have some pretty hysterical things that I share. But when it's talking about business or social justice or something like that, I do care deeply about the message. And actually, on the topic of the social justice stuff, because of my background in social justice and the environmental world, honestly, that was one of the things that I was so afraid to lose when I stepped into coaching. And I realized that part of what I get to use my platform for is continuing to talk about these different issues. So sometimes I'm talking about business, but often it's in that context of the social justice pieces.
Yes. Yeah. And this was stuff, you know, I got to hang out in person.
Yeah.
Back in March, right, in Phoenix at an event that was led by Allie Brown. It was so cool. You didn't know anyone was going to be there. I didn't either. And then we realized like, oh wait, we actually did. And so, you know, and I just want to make that point too to everyone listening, because I know there's people out there, there's women out there who won't go to things because they don't think they know anyone who's there. You will never get anywhere in your business with that freaking mindset. You've got to be willing to leave the pack, be the first one, be the only one. Because if you're in the right room, you'll pretty much be buds with everyone by the end of the event. So that was such a cool thing. But we talked about things like that around, you know, where we see this work going, this industry going. A lot of the people in that room were also coaches. And know you and I really connect around these social justice pieces, and that we have these platforms. They're not just for putting pretty pictures up and making people feel good, or making people kind of think about growing your business. Growing your business is, that's a beautiful thing. And the world is going to become better because we have more wealthy, empowered women. And we're not going to ignore, like, there are a lot of horrible things happening in the world. There are heartbreaking things. And you and I have both said we're not going to just hang out in our, you know, white girl bubble pretending like everything's awesome. I'm going to like just plug my ears and cover my eyes. There's things that we can do. I mean, just today, do you read Humans of New York? Do you follow
on rare occasion? Yeah.
Oh my God. I bought the book a few years back because I said, gosh, he puts out all this wonderful content. Let me buy the book. And just today I was reading, he's been doing this whole series around Special Olympics. And so he was out at Special Olympics. Oh yeah. Oh my God. I think it was in Dubai. Anyway, all of course, these wonderful vignettes and stories around the athletes or the parents or the coaches. And I didn't realize he has a Patreon, kind of like that
Okay.
crowdsourcing kind of thing. And I just saw that, and there was one kid that they featured he's from Mongolia, and his parents had died, and this wonderful woman took him in and basically raised him as her own. And they said, we're going to be like, basically all the money that comes in through this Patreon is helping to support this boy's education and reimbursing this woman for like doing this. And it was just so lovely. And I said, I just clicked on it. Like the minimum donation each month is $1.50 a month. It's like, hey,
Wow.
you just put $1.50 a month. And then they had, higher levels of giving. There's whatever amount, it doesn't matter. It's just, do you want to be part of doing this wonderful work in the world? And so I give to that through my business. It's like, you know what? That is something, it's a profitable, a charitable donation that I want to make, and it helps fuel the work. And so everyone, I want you all to take that in. And that for me it gets me out of my head going, should I share it one more time? Should I reach out to that person? We can get into our head so easily. So how do you deal with that? Because I see you out there, and you are bold with putting your work out there. Like I know when you're in a launch, I'm like, she's in a launch right now. Like she's going, it's like the finish line is over here, and she is rocking it out. Like you don't, if you follow Emily, you're not like, oh, I didn't know you were launching anything. So, which is wonderful. Like that to me is a great message that women need to take in. You need to be committed. It's like, okay, there's a finish line, never going to get there if you don't put your stuff out there. So like, do you have to say anything to yourself? How do you get yourself in that zone? Like what is your process for doing what needs to be done to get to that finish line?
Yeah. Well, so much of what I do and the content I create is really based on inspiration. So I've definitely had moments where I don't feel as jazzed about a program and I have to re-enroll myself in why I'm doing it. Sometimes it's that I need to change the price. Like I feel resentful around what I'm receiving, so it needs to change. But for me, and again, this is kind of where the activist stuff comes in. I use that part of my personality that likes to rally around something and likes to believe in something. And in this case, it's like my own program. So when I'm selling sales power, for example, the results that people get are so phenomenal that I think it would be insane for anyone to not buy it. Right? Even successful people. Some of my best testimonials are from people who already had a multiple six-figure business, bought sales power, and boom, made even more, So I look at the outcome that the clients are going to get from being in the program, and that just jazzes me up. But do I have to sometimes talk myself back into that? Of course I do. We all have insecure moments. I was just telling my Express clients about this last night because they were saying to me, Emily, I just want to be able to shout it from the rooftops 100%. And I was like, awesome. That's going to work sometimes. But other times we have to re-enroll ourselves back in the vision. And also I do think it's important to do a self-check-in every once in a while and ask, wait, am I still selling the thing that I want to be selling, or does something need to change? So a conversation I had with a girlfriend, it's probably been a couple of years now. There's just some things that weren't working very well. And she said, are you having fun?
I'm going to pause. This is my daughter. She's already eating a sandwich. Can you say hi? That's Emily. Hi. Say hi.
Nice to meet you.
Hold on one second. Let me just pause this for a second. Take her up to her dad. All right, 1 sec. Yeah, she's like, no, don't. Hold on to life. Okay, that was a real life break. That's daughter Kate home from school. All right, so this is good though, because it's re-enrolling yourself. Okay, so you're having the conversation with a friend.
Yeah. So, last night I was talking to my Express clients about this, of how we're not always going to feel like we want to shout it from the rooftops, but that's when the conversation with my friend. Sorry, I got like, what were we talking about? Okay. So a friend asked me if I was still having fun, and I was like, oh shit, I'm not. And so I remember I love the big notebooks, to like big pieces of paper, like this big. And, I took my little markers and my notebook down to the beach, and I literally cut the page in half, just with a line, and I wrote, love, don't love. And I went through my program curriculum, and I was like, what am I just so freaking overdoing? And then what do I need to do to either not have to teach it live anymore, but still give my clients the resource, or what just gets to go? Like what gets to not be a part of my program anymore? So that's part of what I did. But even with the launch of Express, which is a brand new program, first time I ever launched it, it was something I'd wanted to do for so long. And I just gave myself permission to launch it in a messy way. And it's really funny to me, other people's perceptions of that launch, because in my head, it was like a shit show. I felt kind of insecure because I'd never done it before. I had not one testimonial. You know what I mean? It didn't exist.
Right.
And
it was fresh.
48 people joined.
So awesome.
Which I thought was amazing. Like, I thought I'd be happy with 15, maybe 20. Like, that would have been a stretch.
Wow.
And then it ended up being 48, including a couple people who begged their way in after the doors were closed.
That's so awesome. How long did you keep that enrollment open for? Do you remember?
I think the whole thing was about a month.
Okay, cool. So these are good conversations to have, especially for advanced marketers, like those of us who've been in the game, like understanding. I'm in one of those that by the time this goes live will be done, but I've been inspired by some of that type of energy too. I've done all different kinds, with like a few days, a week, of this, of that. And I am now re-enrolling for a program. I let it live for the first time last year, a pretty premium price point, but was inspired by a colleague and what she had, I think you and I might have talked about it. And she like reduced her price by 80%. It was a really beautiful program, what she was putting out there, and it's going to make major ripples in the world. And I just said, you know what? There's something about that excites me, where I feel like I could get behind that. There's times when we have to say, do you want your price to like really stretch you and like you really feel like, wow, I'm moving into this new terrain, or do you want the price to be something that's super doable to like most people who are into this space? You could charge a lot more, just the way that you position and package and that kind of thing. But yeah, I think it's important to your point. Are you having fun? Like, are you giving yourself space to really play in this playground to, you know what, I'm gonna give myself some room for like a month to just put out different variations of this message, really engage people, see that it is a longer runway. It's the finish line is further in the distance than if I've got that, that week. Really ask yourself, are you playing with Facebook ads? Like, what's your deal with that? I want to ask you that too. Like, do you do the Facebook ad thing, or is it pretty much all organic for you at this stage?
We've tried Facebook ads, but nothing has converted very well yet. We're going to try a new strategy soon. But no, everything is pretty much organic. Of course, a little bit from my list, but organic social is my moneymaker right now, for sure.
Let's talk about that. So when you're in a launch, let's go deep in here. And this is good. There's certain interviews I'll do, and they're kind of more like higher level. And there's others I'm like, let's get into some details here on how this actually looks executionally. So you're in a launch. Let's just talk about Express. All right. Because you just went through that. And so organic social, you're just sharing. And for what I see, correct me if I'm wrong, it's Facebook. Facebook is where it's
Facebook. And I'm on Instagram, but honestly, I have no idea if anyone's ever bought because of Instagram.
Yeah. And I looked at your Instagram like, oh yeah, you don't seem to be doing a lot there that I see, but that's fine. And like, this is a good thing for people to know. You don't have to be on 17 channels, just pick one or two that you seem to really energetically be most fired up by, and you speak that language the best. So when it comes to Facebook, are you sharing personal page, group, business page? Are you doing lives? Is it a mix? How are you playing that?
Yeah, so almost everything is from my personal page, and I know we're not really supposed to do that, but let's be honest, everybody does. And to get eyes on your stuff, it's personal is kind of the way to go. I do have a group, but I gotta say I'm not using it properly, so that's kind of like womp womp and dead.
So do you not?
But I'm happy to share this because it's like people think they have to have all these things working well, and I'm like, well, I mean that would be nice, but it's not working.
Your personal page is electric because you're always sharing cool stuff there, and the people who follow you are vibing on you and what you're putting out.
Well, exactly. And something I know you heard me say, but I'll share it, for the audience right now, is that I've pretty much stopped doing sales calls for my high end because I just tell people to go binge on my content, and then they know if they want to work with me or not.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this is really awesome. Y'all take that in. And for those of you who
Yeah.
really do not like getting on the phone, or it's harder for you to schedule because you're over in a different time zone, like you
Right.
travel like Emily does, or you just have a very finite period of time that you have available to work. You know, that's my space. Like I homeschool my kids for a part of
Yeah.
so I don't have a gazillion hours every day to devote to bunches of sales calls and blah, blah, blah. I mean, there's still times I'll get on the phone, but when you shared that, I was like, that's really bold. I think a lot of what we need to talk about is this kind of paradigm shifting, and maybe what we were taught for that person who's teaching it to you, it really worked, or maybe it still works for them now, but that's how they're wired. They love getting on the phone. It's like their favorite thing to do. But for you, that's prison. So
yeah. Well, I mean, I love sales, right? And I teach sales, but I feel like, and maybe I'll change my mind on this, I feel like it's one of those you got to pay your dues kind of things. Mm-hmm. Like if you can't sell over the phone, you're not gonna be able to sell anywhere else. Like
totally.
The
Good
reason
call. Or
why,
in a room. Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's like what I think I really help my clients with in sales power is the conviction, the clarity, having the offer make freaking sense, connecting the dots for the potential client of how that program is going to solve the problem and get them what they want. The medium where that gets translated can be a DM on Instagram. It can be Facebook Messenger, or it could be the phone, or it could be from stage. But the elements, the ingredients, they all need to be there. So I do see, and I one of my areas of intuition is I can actually read people's money energy. And I'll tell you, there are people on Facebook who are saying things like, oh, I don't do sales calls and da-da-da, but whose businesses aren't actually making money. Now, there are people saying that who are crushing it and making multi-millions, but there's also people who are just like, oh, no, I don't do that. Like, people just buy me based on energy, but I'm like, but you don't have clients. So that's not actually working for you.
Probably should be doing that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that's a really good insight and I have a coaching school, and I very much teach enrollment conversations and closing the sale that way.
And they need to learn that.
They need to learn that, like to get on the phone, to really feel each other out, to understand what that person's objections are. Are you confident enough to say, all right, awesome, we're moving forward. Let's get your payment handled. You know, can you take a credit card? Like, I know people are like, what? I'm like, yeah, get ready. You know, like ask them for the number.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Get ready to get paid. So when you were in that launch, are you emailing your list at all? Or are you really just doing the Facebook thing?
We did email the list, but really it was mostly Facebook. In fact, actually, we were doing a little bit of analysis, and I would have to check back with my team. We were trying to figure out who came from where, which you can't exactly do. We could have done it if we had a duplicate sales page, which would be super fun to test, where like all the Facebook posts would go to this sales page and the other one would be, and then we would know exactly. So I think we'll do that.
That's a smart idea.
Yeah. Something else that was interesting to me is that 15 of my own clients joined. So I was like, well, this is cool. Like they want more of this from me.
So they were already in one of your current programs, and they
So I gave them a deal, but they had to pay for it. So not everybody chose it, which is fine. But it was really good feedback for me around which of my clients want this from me.
Yeah. Good. So what do you I know we're getting to the end of our wonderful conversation. We could spend lots of time.
I know.
Oh, and I wanted to share too, Emily and I have Pelotoned together. We Peloton. Yes. I actually, you'll get a kick out of this. I interviewed Tara Malarkey. I don't know if you're connected to her.
We just connected on Facebook because of your post.
Oh, good. Well, I'm so glad. So I have kind of back interviews today, but I had a little pocket of time, and I've got my Peloton right outside of my office, and I literally biked with my jeans on. I took my sweater and shirt and was in my bra. I was like, bra and jeans, let's go. Like that. Wow. We're going to work up this sweat.
That's great.
Yeah, it was fun. You got to move that energy. So what are you, like this year, you're fired up. The Taking a Stand is around self-expression. Anything else that you want to share with the listeners, kind of give more of a flavor of Emily?
Well, in terms of taking a stand, definitely being a voice in our industry, in the coaching industry, around equity and diversity. So, I mean, the coaching industry is white as you know what. So I've learned a lot from my former client, Trudy LeBron, who I worked with. Well, she worked with me for 2 years, but I also studied under her in a beautiful course she created that was for white coaches on diversity and equity. So we've created some new policies in my company. I've learned a lot. I am no expert by any means, but I do think it's really important for white coaches to even sloppily start talking about this stuff, because it's not an equal playing field out there. And I don't think that people are talking about it. And I don't think that people are, you know, taking much initiative. So a few people are, you know, Charlotte Jacobs was in Trudy's course with me, and I know she's, you know, really taking this to heart and taking some actions. But I think that it is our responsibility as coaches with white privilege, those of us who fit that category, to actually firstly educate ourselves, but then secondly, to start taking action. And like I said, talk about it even if we're fumbling our way through. And I know race is really hard to talk about. And, you know, it's hard to talk about race without upsetting somebody. And I think that's a reason why a lot of white people who do actually care don't say anything, because they're so afraid they're going to say something stupid. But what I've learned is that it's far more powerful to say something, even if it's a little bit off, than to say nothing at all. And people are watching. And I think that more people are paying attention, and people of color are asking for this. And I think that white coaches who don't address this are going to start seeing it hit their revenue as well. It's going to be an issue. I know that when I look at a sales page of somebody else's and also our own, and I see only blonde chicks, I'm like, wow, this is embarrassing. This is embarrassing. Right? So we're looking at how do we diversify my client base, which admittedly is very white right now. In fact, it's whiter than it's been in the past, which I'm like, wow, okay, I got to work with this. But we've implemented some new things. You know, I definitely take it into consideration when I have new hires. So I'm doing something. I'm not doing enough, but I feel like it's like we all get to like talk about it and do something. And really, I think a big part of that is taking the necessary steps to educate ourselves and to just say, well, I'm not racist, or yeah, we have a Black girl in my program. Like, that's not enough.
Right, exactly. It's what can you be doing is to look at the complexion of your programs, your team, what you're putting out there. I mean, really look at the imagery. And it also can tie back to some of those, you know, causes that we support. It's like, I know I'm giving to these quote marginalized groups, these disenfranchised groups, you know. I love being able to do that. Like I feel so fired up about that. Like on my business, we give to Kiva, you know, and they're typically entrepreneurs in third world countries. Like I have a soft spot for India because I've been to India. And so it's like to know that we were so freaking lucky to be born in the United States. Okay. Like right there, we just have so much luck. And listen, we got a lot of things that are wrong in the US. I don't think the US is the best country by any stretch of the imagination. Every country has its, you know, pluses and minuses. But we do really need to keep our eyes open. My husband and I were talking about this last night, because he's like, you spend a lot of time really looking at these articles and, you know, you get really fired up about stuff. And he didn't know me like that when we first got together. You know, we'd go to dinner with his parents, his parents are like ultra liberal. His mother writes letters to the New York Times, you know, letters to the editor multiple times a week. She's been published a lot.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Oh yeah, BFF. She's coming to my event. P.S. Spoiler alert: she's our mystery speaker. I'm going to talk to her about how does she put. You know, you do not know. You do not have to guess where she stands on things. Okay, so they'd ask me, well, what do you think about blah blah? You know, something. I'm like, I don't know. You know, like I don't know. I'm so in my little New York City world. Those things didn't really affect me. And so why do I need to have an opinion about that? Why do I need to even go research it? I wasn't even really reading newspapers so much then, because why? And now that's just not an option. I said to my husband, it does impact my work to know what's going on. You know, I watch what the Prime Minister of New Zealand is like, how she's presenting herself and how she takes that action. And I use that as an example with my clients to be bold in your position and be swift with your decision making. And, you know, just a couple days ago, I never heard of this rapper before, Nipsey Hussle. Are you familiar with it?
No.
he was just killed. This like, oh my,
Oh,
and I had
wow.
literally, I find a lot of my news from Sean King, who is, you know, an
Okay.
activist and a journalist that I really respect and admire. And he's really here to serve the Black community. And I've invested in his media company. Like I give money every month because I learned so much from him. I'm like, I get so
Yeah.
much from this guy. And you know, you do have to give gazillions of dollars each month to support these enterprises. Like give a few bucks, you know, it's
Yeah.
just the energy around it that you are using your privilege and the abundance and the wealth that comes into your world, and you're spreading it. You're just spreading it around. We don't need to hoard. There's more than enough for everybody.
Yeah.
Anyway, I found out about this guy, Nipsey Hussle, who you got to check him out. Like I was then binging on his interviews. This guy was brilliant. He was just shot in front of his clothing store in Los Angeles. He was doing so much wonderful work for that community. You know, he was a rapper. He was a gang life. But I was watching these interviews with him. Like, he's brilliant. Like, he could have gone so much further. He was going to touch a lot of lives. And it's just super unfortunate. But those kinds of things, yeah, I'm not, you know, rap is not my favorite genre of music. Like, I don't identify with that culture so much. But there's a lot to be learned. You know, there's a lot to be learned. And I actually reached out to my mastermind clients, like, you need to go watch some interviews with Nipsey Hussle. This guy was brilliant. He was saying things. He was bringing, you know, a beacon of light to that community. What can you take away from his life, you know, and the messages that he left behind? So thank you for bringing this to light. All right, girl, finale question. You're a gutsy woman. You've done so much. I'm so glad to know you. What's the gutsiest move you've ever made, and how does it inspire your life and work today?
Well, I really think one of the gutsiest things I ever did was move to California knowing only one person with 2 duffel bags, and made a life here. So I moved to San Francisco, flew Southwest Airlines because you could check 2 bags for free. And I had the biggest duffel bags you could find. Like, I don't know how they let me through. They were, you know, bigger than we could even fit in the screen. But I filled them up, moved to San Francisco, did the AmeriCorps thing, put together some AmeriCorps people in an apartment. And I think what I really got from that experience, which wasn't easy, I definitely had a lot of anxiety around it and all of that, but just the importance of resourcefulness and knowing that we can trust ourselves and figure things out and make a plan with the resources that we have. So I would make a little schedule every day, go see these open houses and apartments, and then also being aggressive, because the housing market in San Francisco is crazy. And so when I found a place that I knew was going to work, I literally paid on the spot during the open house, and people were still coming in, and I was like, sorry, I just got it.
You're in my house.
Yeah. Oh, so resourcefulness, being aggressive towards what you want. And, I mean, I know you get this. I've been through so much shiz in my business. It's crazy. But I think one of the most powerful things we can ever do for ourselves is really get that real belief that we can handle anything, because we actually can. And I've been through enough things now that I know that it's true. And it's not that I want to go through these things. I don't, you know. Yeah. Sometimes it feels never ending. Like one thing ends and then a new thing happens. And I'm like, seriously, do I get a break? Can I get like 10 days, please? But yeah, so I think that was one of the gutsiest moves that I've ever made that showed me what's possible for me.
And what you're made of. And where did you move from?
So I kind of split, because my parents have been divorced forever. So my mom was in New Hampshire, my dad was in Vermont. So technically I moved to California, I think from Vermont. I'd spent the summer with my dad, but basically East Coast out to California. Yeah, which was always my dream. I always wanted to live in California, and I didn't even know really why, but I definitely knew I was done with snow for the rest of my life after living in Vermont. Like, I'm good.
You were all set. I love you. Got to hook up with Tara, because she grew up in Connecticut and she's out in California and she's traveled all.
Yeah, she's like in San Diego too. So
I know. I was like, wait, hold on. You know each other? No, you do now. All right. Yeah. Awesome, Emily. You're incredible. Thank you so much for being here. Where can people find you? Where do you want to take them?
Okay, so I would say, you know, emilyutter.com is my website, blah, blah. I think if you really want to check out my stuff, go to my Facebook page, which we can give you the exact link, or you can
we'll put it on
search for a girl in Burning Man gear on Facebook named Emily Utter, and you'll find me. There are a few people with my name, which is pretty funny. But I think that if someone wants to follow my content, that's the best way to find me.
Yes. And then you also have this magnetized money bundle.
Yes.
And tell people about that, and we'll link it up on our show notes page too.
Yes. Okay. So one of my obsessions is money mindset and continuously working on my money mindset. And I love going live and making videos talking about money mindset, about my own experiences, what I've learned, and really passing my knowledge on to others. So what we did was we put together 3 of my most popular videos on money mindset and on the process of growing a successful business into this magnetized money bundle. So we've hooked you all up with the link. You can get it for free. It'll be a good way to kind of check yourself on where you're at with your money. And if you're curious to get to know a little bit of my work more, that's a great way too.
Awesome. Okay, everybody, you can head over to jennyfennig.com. Just go to our blog and podcast link at the top. Type in Emily Utter in the search bar, and you will find this episode with all of these fantastic links. Emily, you're incredible. You're all off to Bali and just doing so much more good stuff in the world. Everybody check her out and keep coming back for more. This is Jenny Fennig sending you so much love, magic, and confidence as you get gutsy. I'll see you next time.